Welcome to episode number 9 on how to build your own buggy. Today we're going to be talking about shifters, pedals, steering wheel, interior panels, and then finally paint. Alright, so first of all we're going to talk today about some of the smaller items that you position on the buggy. For instance, you have the shifters. So this picture shows you how I position the shifters. So basically what I start off with is I start making some smaller diameter tubes that I run them inside the cockpit, and I basically kind of try to envision how my dash is going to look like. So obviously this is something that is personal, so you can decide to design your cockpit however you like. Just make sure that there's enough room for your steering wheel. You know, you position it in the right spot. So obviously you put your seats in place, and you have to position the steering wheel in a place where it is off your legs, but not too high, because otherwise you can't see in front of you. So you have to find what is the perfect position for you depending on your own body, and ultimately also you have to make sure that you position the pedals, whether the gas or the brake pedals, in the right spot. And okay, so yes, I said brake pedals. Something I like to do in all my buggies is I've always had two master cylinders, one for the front axle and one for the back axle, and I have two brake pedals side by side that 99% of the time I just push both pedals at the same time. Why I do it that way? Because basically, just in case you're in a situation where you need to do a front dig, meaning that you hold the rear brakes, you put the transfer case in front wheel drive, and then you push on the gas, and basically kind of the front end, you can twist the front end sideways as much as you want. You could try that if you want. It's pretty neat. So that is why I have two pedals, and also I like to have two separate systems just in case I have one failure. Then I'll have the other brake, and it had happened to me in the past. Last year, for example, my rear brake line got caught on a log, and it basically ripped it off, and I only had front brakes, which was fine for the day, but it's just an extra safety factor. And then you position your shifters. So the shifter positions are very, very important, once again, because you need to be able to reach them. You need to be comfortable. So once again, looking at this picture, you have to sit in that seat for, I spent probably 2-3 hours sitting in the seat and trying various positions before I decided where to put them. Okay, so all's done. I also found a spot for my battery, and the master cylinders are all set up. The steering orbital, obviously all the little details, and this kind of gives you an overview of what I did for the pedals and the steering wheel. My steering wheel, I didn't want it too high, so I wanted to drop it down just a little bit, and the only way around that was basically to notch the tube, which turned out to be fine. And then you're ready for interior panels. Alright, so you can buy the tabs already all made up and cut up for you, and I've bought them in the past from eBay. You can buy like 100 of these tabs, but I had the plasma and it wasn't too much work for me to cut up my own tabs. You can either tap them for a 1/4 inch thread, or you can just weld some nuts at the back. So once all this done, I basically start making panels, interior panels. So looking at the doors, you see that I'm still missing. I didn't put all the bars that go on the outside of the door, where the door would be. I mean, there's obviously no doors here. But the reason for that is I wanted the interior panels to be accessible for me, so I can slide myself in order to do some welding, positioning panels, etc. I didn't want anything to be in the way. I obviously added the extra door bar that is missing right in the middle of the big hole here. I added it later on. So now to interior panels. So the panels, obviously, I have a combination of steel panels and aluminum panels. So the steel panels, and I'm quite adamant at saying that it's very important that you have some sort of a firewall between you and the engine, and you need also some sort of protection between you and the transmission. These are important just in case of failures. Even though if you're interested in not having them because of visibility, you want to be able to see better, you're taking a risk, I don't recommend it. And because you need some sort of containment for the engine. You don't have to go all the way from side to side on the buggy. You can kind of wrap the engine, the portion of the firewall in front of your feet. You can kind of bend it forward towards the engine. This will give you visibility, but I wasn't really interested in that, so I just built them that way. Okay, so for the panels, now I'm gonna show you what I did especially for the aluminum panels. You see some of the aluminum panels are bent, and I actually built my own jig in order to bend the aluminum panels. The aluminum panels are made out of 80,000th of an inch thickness, so they're easily bendable. I cut off some cardboard templates, and this is how I build them approximately. So step number one is to cut off the templates. This will give you a rough idea of how much aluminum or how wide or how big your panels are. And then I bend the panels to where I'm ready, and I start forming them. Okay, so for bending aluminum panels, what I did is I actually bought 2 hinges from the hardware store, and then I had a whole bunch of scrap steel. It's not rocket science how to build a bender. So basically, just a piece of 1 by 2 inch tube that I welded some nuts, and then I welded the hinges in place. I made 2 long handles, and then I used a piece of 3/16 angle iron, as you can see here. Okay, and obviously now you can see that it's hinged, so it moves. These are just pieces of angle iron that I just welded to the side here. And then I used a 3/16 piece of angle iron with some corners on the sides. So if I have a piece of aluminum that I want to bend, basically you just put it, and then you position the bar over it to hold it in place. And then you just put the nuts. Alright, so now you have all your interior panels completed, and the chassis is almost all done. The buggy is all built. So now you have to make sure to attach everything that you want to attach on it. So all the small items, I don't know, GPS mount, fire extinguisher mounts, anything that you think about, now is the time to do it. And I normally recommend, to take a day off, and maybe a day or 2 days off from the build to kind of think about what else I can need to weld on the buggy, because once it's all disassembled and painted, it's going to be harder to reinstall later on. So you make sure everything's finished on it, and then once you're 100% sure you're all done, it's time to tear it down. So basically, you take everything off the chassis completely and you put it on the side, including starting from the small items to the large items, and then your chassis is bare. Alright, so for paint, well, I've tried pretty much everything for paint. I've painted my chassis in the past with liquid paint, with a roller or a brush. I've done that. I've painted with the spray cans. And this time around, I said to myself, you know what? This is a nice looking chassis. I'm gonna try to spend some money on paint. So I basically I decided to buy some a urethane automobile paint. It's a single stage, so it wasn't the expensive one. But honestly, it still cost me close to $400 worth of paint. The problem with this is it is somewhat toxic, so you need a good respirator, and you need to build also like some sort of a plastic room where you can paint without the overspray going all over your stuff in the garage. And so I did that, and then you also need some sort of exhaust fan as well to draw the fumes. And to tell you the truth, this was a lot of work building that paint room. And honestly, if I had to do it again, I would just use spray paint. The reason for that is because the chassis looks nice, yeah, after you're done, and the paint hardens because it's kind of a urethane paint. So it chips off, you know. I mean, my buggy, I don't baby it off-road, so I rub against trees and rocks. So the paint is chipped all over the place. So it's harder for me to fix now. I mean, I can't just kind of spray it with a can because the paint won't match anymore. So I have to mix every time I want to do a touch-up. So that's a lot of work. Honestly, save yourself money and trouble and just paint it with a spray can. This would be my number one choice. If you want, you can paint it with a primer first and then a can. And obviously, before you apply any sort of paint, you have to remember that you have to clean it with solvent first. You just take a rag and just clean it with solvent properly, so all the grease and all the whatever is on the chassis is all gone before you paint. Otherwise, the paint is not going to stick. And then once it's ready, you disassemble the paint room if this is what you've done, and then you basically start assembling the components. You start with the largest and go to the smallest, much easier. Step number one I recommend is putting the axles first. So make sure you put the axles first and put the control arms first. And then after that, with the axles, with the chassis sitting on the axles at full compression, this is when you put the engine, transmission, transfer case without anything else in place. So this will be the fastest way of doing it. And then after that, you install the coilovers and all the larger items like the radiator, the fuel tank, not the seats. The seats you leave them to last. Because you want to do the electrical first. Then after that, all is done here. You got all the large components in place, and you're pretty much ready for the next step, which is electrical. So I'm gonna wrap it up for today. I still have I'm still going to do one more episode on electrical. So electrical is pretty important. I want to explain to you exactly how I did the electrical on my buggy, and that's going to be it for this series. So, thank you very much for following along. I really appreciate your comments.